In this video, I will be showing you how to use this launcher to start a new meeting, schedule a meeting, join an existing meeting, or start a new chat. There are three crucial parts of your hardware you need to adjust before you can start a Zoom meeting: your webcam, your microphone, and your headphones or speakers. First, move to the wheel in the top right, accessing your settings. Move to the Video tab, hello again, and make sure that you have the correct webcam selected in the drop-down menu. If you'd like to, enable HD or to touch up your appearance. Then, move to the audio settings. This will let you choose your speaker, although I recommend using headphones, and your microphone. If you'd like to test the volume of your headphones, you can click Test Speaker and it will play a chime in both ears. And if you'd like to test your microphone, you can click Test Mic. You can then talk into the microphone and it will play it back into your headphones, letting you know how you sound. Once your hardware is set up and adjusted, we'll start a new meeting. Clicking the orange New Meeting tab will instantly put you into a new meeting, pulling up your camera and your audio. Whenever a pop-up comes up asking you whether you'd like to join with computer audio, make sure you click Yes. Sometimes you'll be muted or your video will be off by default, so go down into the bottom left and make sure that both of these icons do not display a red cross through for them. When you start a new meeting, you'll instantly put in, but there will be no one else here until you invite them. To invite people, move to the Participants button and click the up caret. You then can click Invite, pulling up a dialog box to invite any student or professor at LaSalle, which will send directly to their LaSalle email, or you can click Email to enter their email directly if it's someone who does not attend LaSalle. Later in the video, we'll talk about all of the options you have while you're in a meeting, but for now, let's talk about how you can schedule a meeting and send out the link ahead of time so that everyone can meet at the same time. Scheduling a Zoom meeting ahead of time is much more advantageous as it lets you customize the experience much deeper, as well as alert people who will be partaking in the meeting, that way they can clear time in their schedules. To schedule a meeting, move to the Schedule button and open up the Schedule Meeting window. The first thing you want to do when scheduling a meeting is to give it a topic. This will show up as the title of the meeting in both the calendar and on the Zoom client. The next thing you want to do is to select the start date and time for your meeting. Let's assume that we have a meeting that is going to start on July 20th at 4 p.m. You would move to the calendar, select July 20th from the actual calendar, then move to the time and scroll down to 4 p.m. This does not mean that the meeting has to start at 4 p.m. In fact, you can start it earlier or later, but this is what will show up whenever you send people the invitation or put it into their calendars. Similar to the start time, you can select a duration, letting people know how much of their schedules they'll have to clear to partake in the meeting. The meeting does not have to last as long as you set it for, and it can be ended sooner. This is just a way to remind people. You can also click on the Recurring Meeting button, which will let you customize how often a meeting repeats, whether that be every day, every other day, a week, month, or however you choose. Every Zoom account has a personal meeting ID. Mine is blurred out here so you can't see it, but it would show up where the circle is on screen. Every time you create a meeting, you can generate an automatic ID, making it so that only people with the ID for that specific meeting can enter. Or, if you're meeting with the same people often, you can click Personal Meeting ID and give them your ID so they can save it for later, not having to send out the ID every single time you'd like to have a meeting. For an additional set of security, you can add a password to your meetings. If you're generating the ID automatically, you might not need to add a password, as only the people who have the ID can join. But if you're using the personal meeting ID, which stays the same, you might want to add the password, just in case some people might try to get into your meeting whenever they're not supposed to. Next is the video options. This is separated between the host and participants, but they both act the same way. When they're selected to off, whenever people join a meeting, whether that be the host or other participants, their cameras will be automatically turned off, with the option to turn them on. However, if you'd like them to have their cameras turned on and stay on for the entire meeting, you can select them to on. If someone does not want their camera to be on as soon as they join, but would still like to be in the meeting, after they join, they'll have a chance to check their camera before clicking connect. Next is the audio options. By default, everyone will start muted whenever you go into a Zoom meeting unless you go into the advanced settings and change it within the meeting. You can, however, call into a Zoom meeting through your telephone using a specialized phone number that each meeting has. You can turn this off if you would like people to only connect using their computer audio or only connect using their telephones. The next option shows how Zoom meetings will show up in virtual calendars. If you click on Outlook, you'll have to send the meeting invitation through an Outlook email address to an Outlook email address for it to be added automatically. All LaSalle email addresses are by default Outlook, but there are other options such as Google Calendar. If you send someone a Zoom meeting invitation and they do not have an Outlook email, they can still add it to their calendar using a link, it just will not happen automatically. The same also goes for Google Calendar, which will be added automatically through Gmail, but is still an option with the link. Alternatively, you can select other calendars, which will not automatically add the meeting to anyone's calendar, but will give them the option to do it manually. All of the options on the schedule meeting window are very helpful if you're using Zoom on a regular basis. But if you're using Zoom very regularly, you might want to look into the advanced options dropdown, which have many different customizations you can use to make your Zoom experience better. Clicking Enable Waiting Room will have a place that people can join with their cameras off before the meeting actually starts, but still use the text chat. Enable Join Before Host will allow your participants to enter a meeting and even use their camera and audio before the host is there. Mute participants upon entry is good if you're going to be doing an announcement to many people, such as a class, or if you'd be doing a presentation. Below this, only authenticated users can sign into Zoom, will be a way that you can limit the number of people that join your Zoom meeting and make it so that only the proper people will join. Below this, Automatically Record Meeting will automatically hit the record button as soon as you start the meeting, putting the video in the cloud either on Canvas or onto your Zoom cloud link. If you'll be doing a group presentation, or if you feel like you might miss the meeting for some reason, you can put alternative hosts' emails into the alternative host box. This will make it so that they can start the meeting and do everything that you would be able to if you can't make it. Once you have your Zoom meeting set up and ready for scheduling, click the Schedule button to be brought to a window where you can invite people. You cannot invite people directly to the meeting like you can if you're in the meeting, but you can send the invitation ahead of time using any chat client or email service. Next, I will be covering what each of these lines of text means in the invitation screen. If you'd not like to watch this, simply skip to the timestamp shown on screen, and remember that the link shown here and that the meeting password are the only thing that the person really needs to access the meeting. Zoom invitations can be quite detailed and long because there's many different ways to access Zoom and no two meetings are alike. The first line is simply a message letting you know that someone has invited you to a Zoom meeting. Below this is the topic and date and time that it will take place. Below this is a link. If the person who you've invited clicks on this link, their default browser will open up and have a pop-up show up. If they click on this pop-up, their Zoom client will open and put them into the meeting, assuming that the meeting has already started. Below this is the meeting ID and password. If someone would like to access the meeting straight from their client, for example, someone that already has their client open and uses Zoom very often, they can go into the client and click on this Join button right here and enter the information found there to access the meeting. Below this is the One Tap Mobile. If you open up this invitation on your mobile device, you can click on this to dial in or access the meeting on your Zoom app. If you know that people will be dialing in by phone, make sure that you have their local number listed, and if you don't know this, the best practice would be to go to this link and find the number and put it in with these bars. Below this again is just a meeting ID and password, because when someone dials in, they may be asked to enter the ID or password through their keypad on their phone. To send this invitation to your participants, either click Copy to Clipboard, or if you're on a mobile device, select All Text and hit Copy. Then move to either a text or email and send this just as a plain text document. You'll see that once you've scheduled a meeting, it will show up on the right side of the screen. This goes for any meeting that you've scheduled to host or any meeting that you've already accepted an invitation to that hasn't taken place yet.